In the 16th century, global wealth was locked behind a strict monopoly. Accessing the riches of the world required navigating the massive, heavily armed fleets of the Spanish and Portuguese empires. This is what that wealth actually looked like: raw materials like nutmeg, cloves, and cinnamon. The port of Lisbon acted as the sole supermarket for Europe to buy these high-value goods coming out of Asia. At the time, the Protestant Dutch were locked in a grueling 80-year fight for their independence against their rulers in Catholic Spain, led by figures like William of Orange. Then, in 1580, the Spanish and Portuguese crowns merged into the Iberian Union. Almost overnight, the vital spice markets in Lisbon were closed to Dutch merchants. This created an immediate existential crisis. The Dutch were fighting a superpower while being cut off from the global economy that funded their rebellion. To keep fighting, they needed to sail directly to Asia and seize control of the global supply chain at its source. Standing their ground on the continent was no longer enough. Survival now required the development of a completely different method of economic warfare. This document outlines their solution: the creation of the Dutch East India Company, or VOC, and later the West India Company. These independent multinational corporations operated with their own private fleets and soldiers, focusing exclusively on securing profit margins. The Netherlands was a tiny federation. They lacked the massive population and manpower that allowed Spain to conquer vast land masses across the globe. Since they functioned as merchants, they avoided large-scale land conquests. Instead, they targeted specific coastal choke points and fortified trading posts to control the shipping lanes. By replacing state armies with shareholders and sprawling colonies with tight logistical choke points, they essentially turned global expansion into an outsourced business model. The West India Company pushed into the Americas, aiming to disrupt established Portuguese and Spanish trade networks in the Atlantic. This is the Castello Plan of New Amsterdam, showing how the company established physical settlements in North America alongside Brazilian sugar plantations. Managing garden plots, housing rows, and civilians required massive administrative overhead. Governing populations proved fundamentally different from managing fleets. A Portuguese rebellion ousted the Dutch from Brazil by 1654, and the English soon absorbed New Amsterdam, stripping the company of its major western territories. In contrast, the Dutch East India Company found success in Asia by avoiding civilian administration and focusing strictly on the naval supply chain. They established outposts like the Cape of Good Hope, strictly to resupply passing ships, allowing them to dominate the lucrative spice trade across southeastern Asia. The Dutch model prioritized lean naval logistics. However, the high costs of managing civilians and defending inland borders in Brazil and North America proved incompatible with the company's core profit-driven mission. By the middle of the 17th century, this tiny European federation had successfully orchestrated a takeover of the global economy. Historians continue to debate whether this early network of profit-driven trading posts truly functioned as a traditional empire during its height. That structure shifted in 1815. Following the Napoleonic Wars, the modern Kingdom of the Netherlands took charge, absorbing the administration of the colonies from the private companies. Influenced by 19th-century imperialism, the Dutch military pushed inland, ultimately establishing the expansive modern boundaries of Indonesia. The Dutch Republic secured its future through trade. By the time the kingdom replaced the companies, a network of remote outposts had already become the foundations of a permanent state-run empire.